Welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar on viewing the latest feature releases for Sage Intacct. My name is Ali Pakalnis, and I will help facilitate our webinar today. Before we get started, here are a few tips on using the Zoom platform so you can engage with our presenters and have the best experience possible. You should see a Zoom toolbar with icons for Ask a Question and Raise Your Hand. Please use the Ask a Question feature to submit a question or comment. If you need any assistance, click on the Raise Your Hand button and I will connect with you to help. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we will do our best to answer them all. If we didn't answer your question, we will follow up with you personally after the presentation. Next slide. Today's webinar does qualify for CPE credits. To receive your credits, you must actively respond to 3 out of the 5 polling questions and stay on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any difficulty answering the polling questions, please email elevatelearn@armaninollp.com with questions. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters, Samaya Alam and Jessica Wirtz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining the R2 release webinar today with me. My name is Samaya, and I'm with the Managed Service team. I have 8 years of industry experience, and I've been working with Intacct for 6 years. I am super excited to share all the updates with you guys, and I have Jessica with me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Wirtz. I'm a senior consultant with Armanino on the Managed Services team. My primary focus area is with not-for-profits, helping them ensure that they're using Sage Intacct to its fullest extent. And then prior to Armanino, I did work with Intacct in an outsourced accounting group. And I'm very excited to be here with you today to talk about the latest updates.
And then Jeremy will be answering Q&A. So Jeremy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jeremy Anderson. I come from a nonprofit accounting background. I've been working with Intacct for several years. I'm very excited to answer any questions you have.
My name is Jennifer Jensen. I'm going to be also assisting Jeremy on answering questions that you have. I'm a manager on the Intacct team, and I'm excited to share the updates with you guys.
Next slide. These are our learning objectives. Identify new release feature for your solution, demonstrate the new user experience and navigation to ease adoption, manage the latest release of the solution to maximize its potential. Next slide. Here is a quick snapshot of the agenda for today's webinar. And then I am going to pass it to Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you, Samaya. Today, we're going to get started talking about dashboards. So previously, if you had a nonprofit template for your Intacct instance, you had a dashboard library that you could go out to and download role-based dashboards. And so those are now rolled out for service industry templates. And so these are customizable. One thing that we notice with clients is when they want to have a dashboard starting with a blank page is very difficult. And so with these role-based dashboards, it kind of gives you a jumping off point. So you can look at it and identify, what's important here, what do I want to keep, and what do I maybe want to customize further. So they're built with the data that Intacct believes is necessary for that role. And then from there, you can customize to your needs. And with that, we will launch our first polling question of the day. And that is, who is notified when a user is locked out? It is a single choice, and that's if it's the admin and the user, only the user, or is no one notified? Awesome. We got those answers in. So the correct answer here is user only since last Friday when the release came out. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. In company and administration, so since the release, an email will be sent to the locked out user, letting them know that they are locked out and they need to contact their administrator to reset the password. This is really important because previously it just told you in a little ribbon, hey, you need to contact your administrator, which isn't helpful because why do I need to contact my administrator if I know that I'm entering my password correctly? And so now that a user will understand that they're locked out, they can contact their administrator and get back into Intacct in a timely manner. Also, with company and administration new features, if you have a French company that's identified by a SIREN or a SIRET number, you're able to integrate those financials into Intacct using those numbers. And also with company and administration, in 2021, Intacct rolled out that they were going to upgrade all single entity instances into multi-entity instances. So they're continuing that effort. So if you're already in a multi-entity instance, there's no action for you to take. If you do currently have a single entity, you will need to name and identify your entity ID and entity name. And so those instructions are here on the screen that will be distributed. And this is really helpful because it does allow for consolidated reporting. And if your business continues to grow and you need to add entities, you're already in that multi-entity environment, so you're able to do so. All right, for budgeting and planning. This was also rolled out in 2021. It's an additional module that can shift your budgets and forecasting out of Excel and into an advanced modeler. You're able to forecast throughout the year, and it also allows you to give access to your budget managers instead of, a current process may look like you're distributing multiple different Excel files, and then those are coming back to you, and you have to compile and then bring it into Intacct somehow to run your budget versus actual reports. So what budgeting and planning can do for you is allow all of those users to input the data that they need for their budget. It'll consolidate it, and then you're able to run your budget to actual reports, which allows for a streamlined budgeting cycle. With that, I will pass it back to Samaya for reporting.
Thank you. Next slide. Reporting, financial report writer. You are able to drill into account group totals in the financial report, which is super nice and super handy. The totals are hyperlink, which takes you to the geo report. Let's take a look how this works in Intacct.
We're going to go to our applications dropdown and into report and the report center.
Click on the balance sheet.
And we're just going to run a balance sheet. Yep.
And then here you can see the total column is hyperlinked now. So if you click on one of the total columns, it brings up the general ledger report for you, which is super nice.
Yeah, this is a really great update because so not only is it broken out by each account, you're able to see the total down at the bottom.
Yeah.
For the entire account group that will tie to the hyperlink that we clicked on.
Yeah, this is super
really
nice. Awesome.
Okay.
Next slide. For the interactive custom report writer, which is an add-on subscription within Intacct, there were two changes that were made. You can create multiple views of the same report with varying levels of detail or different column combination. This allows quick access to user by job function. As you can see in the screenshot, if you are a CFO and you need to see a certain total due for the customers, you can filter by the CFO filter, or if you're a business analyst, you can filter by that as well. That's super nice. Another functionality that was added was the Run Interactive Prompt. This enables SQL results longer list of selection values on the runtime prompt functionality within ICRW. So that's super nice. Next slide. Cash management. Next slide. Intacct has added more fields in the bank feed, such as pay ID, address, as well as reference information. You will have to create a new custom view and add those fields. So if there is more data in your bank transaction, you have the ability to view them now under the bank transaction. Next slide. Other cash management updates, bank transaction dates. You will soon be able to record bank transactions by date and time zone of the bank account. This avoids time difference variances with bank transaction dates and transaction generated from creation rules. Something to keep in mind, this is under early adopter. So if you are interested in being part of the early adopter, please feel free to reach out to your client manager. The next update is creation rules will automatically create inter-entity transaction journal entries. I think we're all super excited about this. Something I would like to point out is this idea came from you. So log into the community and continue to submit those ideas because they do listen to you. So in the past, the creation rules from journal entries were by entities, and you had to do an additional steps if the transaction crossed entities by creating inter-entity transaction for any journal entry that was generated by the creation rule. With this new update, now they will automatically create the journal entries. This will be a huge time saver in terms of the reconciliation process, eliminate the need for manual journal entries, and in terms of setup, there is no setup if your company is enabled for inter-entity transactions. Another next update, UK bank file format to support Virgin Bank and require BACS reference field. Next slide. Order entry, purchasing, and inventory. Let's take a look. Fulfillment management was launched in 2022 R2 release and continues to be available under the early adopter program with this release as well, and so as the commitment quantities during order entry. Next slide. If your company has been upgraded from a single entity company to a multi-entity company, you can select and edit the location and department dimensions for transaction subtotals at the top level. With this new feature, you can transact at the top level with the same flexibility you have at the entity level. You'll be able to set and edit the location and department dimensions in the transaction definition subtotals. If you are interested in being an early adopter for this, please feel free to reach out to your client manager. And I will pass back to Jessica.
Awesome, thank you. So let's look at time and expenses now. In time and expenses, if you're using the credit cards in the cash management module and you have employees submitting non-reimbursable expense reports in the time and expense module, you're able to connect your credit card transactions to the non-reimbursable employee expenses. And so those instances would be when you have an employee that has a company card, so that's where we're getting the non-reimbursable because it's already on the company card, but you're able to have the employee code their transactions as they're, charging the card, and then also you can have them attach their receipts. And this way, your accounts payable clerk isn't having to track down all of your employees for their receipts and the coding of what they spent those funds on. So the employees are coding those transactions themselves, and then it's linked to the company credit cards so that there's no duplicates. You're also able to split a single credit card transaction into separate expense lines. This is really nice because you may have a bulk charge that really needs to be coded to several different expense accounts. And so you're able to do that with this functionality. And for clients using Sage Intelligent Time, which is an additional module, there's now a consistent experience in both Intacct and Sage Intelligent Time. And what this means is when you're in Intacct, you're able to see in a multi-entity environment where you have the top level, and then you also have all of your entities below that you're able to jump in and out of when you need to. So Sage Intelligent Time will mirror that, and it'll also have that top level and then all of the associated levels underneath the top. And Sage Intelligent Time is also going to sync real time. So if you create a new department or a new dimension in Intacct, that will sync over and you'll be able to see it in Sage Intelligent Time within about 15 minutes. And with that, we're going to launch our second polling question. In which scenarios are you unable to edit the reversal date of a posted payment in accounts receivable? And so is that if you're at the entity level trying to edit a top level payment, if the period is closed, if the payment summary is closed, or all of the above?
We'll give you guys some time to answer this. This is a tricky one, I think. I'm excited to see the answers. Wow, 77% of you guys got it right. That is correct. All of the above is the right answer. That's awesome. Next slide. Accounts receivable. Next slide. I think this is my favorite update. Change reversal dates on posted payments. How many times have you tried to reverse a posted payment and you were going way too fast and you entered the date wrong? I have done that more than I can count. Well, with this new release, you can change the reversal date on posted payment. It will allow you to change the date on the posted payment that posts to the general ledger. So let's take a look how this works. Here we have a posted payment. And I have the wrong payment date, which is 5/16/2024. I was going too fast. And then now you can see that it has a reversal link. So you can enter the correct date. Let's just put today's date. And then hit submit. Awesome. And then now we can see that it has been corrected. So that's pretty cool. I am super excited for this update. We don't have to, now we're able to edit the date. This will need to be configured under accounts receivable, and you will have to have the proper permission to do that. So let's go back to the slide. Next slide. Additional updates. Send customer documents such as invoices, statements, and dunning notices using the customer preferred format. For those of you who are using dunning notices, you are able to send them by customer group. Last year, Intacct added the ability to import customer payments in bulk through CSV import template. With this release, you have the ability to use the same CSV template to apply credits in bulk. This is huge. Like, this is such a good time saver. Like, I personally love this update. You can apply AR adjustments, negative invoice credit, and inline credits in this way. A small tip, try in small batches first because the bulk reversal is still currently unavailable. Next slide. Easier access to customer records. When you go to the customer list, you are able to drill down to customer records with one simple click. Let's take a look in Intacct. Accounts receivable, customer, all. And then we'll just take the first customer, health initiative. And this just takes you to the customer record now, which is pretty nice.
So, yes, it is nice. I did just want to point out, so previously it would bring up an AR ledger. So in order to run the AR ledger, you'll go to accounts receivable, and on the all tab under reports, there is still the AR ledger that you're able to run for a certain customer and then whichever time period you're looking for. I think that is important to note.
And then I will pass to Jessica now for taxes.
Great, thank you. In taxes, if you are in a multi-currency environment and you're transacting with Australian vendors, there is a new taxable payments annual report that you can give permissions to users to run. And this report will automatically populate if you have your TPAR enabled vendors marked. So if you enable this report to be run, you will have to edit your vendors to mark them as a TPAR vendor, and then this report will populate for you based on the payments made. You will have to contact your administrator to give you the access to run the report. All right, lease accounting. I know this one has been a hot topic for quite a while now, and I'm happy to announce that it is out of early adopter. So the Sage Intacct lease accounting module is now generally available for all users. It is an additional module. So if you're interested in the lease accounting module, you will need to contact your client manager to get that added. And so the lease accounting module is specifically focused around the lessee side of lease tracking for operating leases that need to conform to the ASC 842 standards. So this is going to help automate your accounting recognition, make sure that you have all of your liabilities and right of use assets booked appropriately. So if you're interested in that, again, we can get you in contact with your client manager to get that added. In nonprofit, we have in the Quick Start library, there's a downloadable financial report for your UK balance sheet and statement of activities if you are a nonprofit Quick Start template for your Intacct instance. And so this will align with the statement of recommended practice financial reporting standards for your UK charities. And so these reports are built off of the Quick Start categories that are assigned to all of your chart of accounts. So if you have all of your accounts assigned to a category, you'll be able to install these reports from the Quick Start library and they'll be ready to run for you. There isn't any additional setup necessary. So that's why it is really important to make sure that you have categories assigned to all of your accounts. And now we're going to launch your third polling question. And it's a quick true and false of you can lock a closed period. All right. 87% got that one right.
Wow,
That's good.
that's good. Yeah.
Let's take a look at that. In General Ledger, we have a few new features, and one of those being you can lock a closed statutory reporting period. So previously, you were able to open and close a period. You may have several individuals on your accounting team that have the permissions to open and close a period. And even when a period is closed, you could still book adjusting entries to that period. And so what the locking the period would do is it's also permission-based. So you could potentially set it to where maybe a larger number of individuals can open and close a period, but only one person is able to lock the period. And so that can be your internal controls, because once a period is locked, you can't post any adjusting entries, you can't open and close it. So that would save the locking of the period for once all of your reporting is done and you know that there won't be any other adjusting entries that need to be made, you can lock that period. And it sounds a little scary, but you can still, in the event that you need to make, that one last audit entry that snuck its way in, you are able to unlock the period. And then once the period is unlocked, you can open it and then post any of the entries that you needed to post. Also, with General Ledger, you can make the choice to include subledger transactions in your audit trail. This would be if your accounts payable, it's posting to the subledger. It's not necessarily an individual user, so it's not getting caught in your audit trail because it's kind of happening behind the scenes. And so what this is doing is, if you enable this function, it will capture all of those transactions that are being posted by the subledgers as well, and include those in your audit trail. And both of these items are under the General Ledger configuration screen. So if you have permissions to your General Ledger configuration, you'll be able to turn either one or both of these functions on. But just remember, for the locking the closed period, if it's enabled in your General Ledger configuration, you do still need to provide access under permissions for whichever users you want to be able to lock and unlock those periods. All right, back to you, Samaya, for construction.
There have been some really nice updates with construction. Next slide. Project commitment. Intacct has added another tab on the project to make it easier to view and filter purchasing commitments for the project. So if you go to the project list and click on a project, you will see a new tab called Purchasing Commitments that includes purchase order and subcontract orders within the project with the document links. That's super nice and handy. Next slide. Incorporate change request with construction project contracts. Prior to this release, the entire value of the change request was linked to the project contract line only at the project change order level. With this release, if you group work by phases, you can attribute posted changes to a specific project contract line by inheriting the change from the project change order, assigning it manually, or assigning it from the change request. Next slide. Reverse conversions in purchasing. So this actually needs to be configured under purchasing. With this new functionality, you are able to adjust reverse a converted quantity by entering negative units. Intacct will correct the convert quantity on the original document and adjust the transaction downstream. This will also help you to see the previously converted lines to make it easier to find what needs to be reversed. Something to keep in mind, the reverse conversion is only available to construction subscription and in purchasing. Next slide. Going forward, you can decide if you want time and material billing to a customer in detail or in summary, using a checkbox at the invoice line level when you go to the generate invoice preview screen. So that's super cool that now you're able to summarize it with a single entry line. And Next slide. That brings me to the next polling question. Can you do partial ownership through tiered consolidation? So true and false. We'll give you a couple of minutes. From what I'm seeing so far, you guys have done your homework and read the release notes, which is awesome. %72% got it right. That is awesome, guys. Next slide. Consolidations. Partial ownership. I think we all have been waiting for this moment. In the past, the consolidation module assumed 100% ownership. With this release, minority interest and investment in subsidiaries can be part of the consolidation by entering the percentage of the ownership within the consolidation module. This will make the reporting of the consolidation so much cleaner and easier to maintain. Something to keep in mind, this is an early adopter, so I highly encourage you guys to reach out to your client manager and be part of the early adopter. And with that, I will pass to Jessica for contracts.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. In contracts, the first update we have is a trigger date for renewal. And so this trigger date will act a little bit differently depending on if it's a termed contract or an evergreen contract. Those evergreen contracts being the auto renewals. So if it's a termed contract and you have the trigger date set, it will create the child of the original contract, which is the renewal. And on the renewal date, that will be the renewal date of the existing contract will be the start date of the new contract. And on those evergreen contracts, the trigger date is the date that will it'll create the next recurring billing period. And then the renewal date will be the in-progress recurring billing date for your evergreen contract. And I know this is a long-awaited update for contracts.
Yes.
So we're able to bundle items and products into kits in the contracts module. And so you do have to enable this in the item. So when you're creating an item, you'll enable the kit, and then you'll assign the items to the kit. And when you enable this, the revenue posting is automatically set to post revenue at the component level, and then it will print at the kit level. And so this allows you to post your revenue on varying schedules, but then your customer only needs to see the one line item. I know this is something that for those of our clients that do have contracts and have these kits, it's required several workarounds with smart events and smart rules and all of those kinds of things in order to get this to function properly. And so with this release, we're now able to do it as a standard functionality in the contracts module. So I definitely want to take a look at this in Intacct.
And I just want to note something, that this idea came from you guys. So continue to vote on ideas and submit those ideas because they do listen.
Yes, absolutely. The community is very important for these releases. All right, so to look at this in our applications dropdown, we're going to go to contracts, and then we're just going to go to the contracts list. And in the contract list, I do have a contract that I want to take a look at with you. In this contract, if we scroll down and look at the contract line, in this line we see where there's just a single item and that's the kit that includes software support and maintenance. So if we dig into this just a little bit further and look at the kit components of this contract line, here's where we're able to see where we have the 3 different items. So we have the subscription as one item, support, and then maintenance is the third. And it's really important to take a look at the 606 revenue templates. So we have, for our support, we have daily posting, and then for subscription and maintenance, we have a straight line posting of that revenue recognition. And so that's going to be determined by the allocation percentage. So it'll take the total line, figure out the percentage of that, and then it will book your revenue based on this revenue template. Awesome. So one other thing that I did want to look at as it relates to this is the invoices. So if we go back to our applications drop down, we're going to go to contracts again and then generate invoices. We didn't want to change anything on that screen, so we're going to go ahead and leave there. And then again, if we find that same contract as if we were invoicing for it, we're going to generate an invoice for the kit testing contract here. So we're going to do preview. Here we go. And then if we look at the transaction amount for this invoice that we're generating, it's really important to note, so the contract billing for this invoice is just one line item. So this will be what your customer sees. They don't need to see that you're recognizing revenue for 3 different items.
Awesome.
They only need to see what they're purchasing.
That's so exciting.
Yes, I think it will make a lot of people happy.
Yes, I am happy. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, and one last update in contracts is there are 3 templates available. They're printed document template samples. And so what you're able to do with those is download the template and customize it. Then you can re-import it and start using that customized invoice. So similar to what we were talking about with the dashboards, sometimes it's easier if you're not starting from a blank page. You kind of have something to work off of and then customize it to make it your own. You can get where you need to be just a little bit faster. So these templates are available for download, and they'll download into a Word document you can customize and then re-import them back into Intacct for use. And then for Sage Intacct Advanced CRM, so we have a couple of enhancements here. And so you're able to sync either on the contract header or on the contract line. And then you're also able to now renew a termed contract into an evergreen contract. So that auto renewal using a evergreen renewal contract template. And if you're interested in using advanced CRM, please reach out to your client manager. They can get you connected with the appropriate people for Intacct Advanced CRM. And now we're going to launch our final polling question of the day, and is that it's true or false, are users able to pay bills from the bills list view in a multi-currency environment? Awesome. Almost everyone got that one right. It is true. You are able to pay bills from the bills list view. The key here was in a multi-currency environment. So previously, this was available to only environments that did not have multi-currency. And it's now available in multi-currency environments. So some of you are maybe very familiar with the option to pay next to a bill on your bills list screen. And so what that does, instead of having to go into your accounts payable and then pay bills and start filtering to make sure that you're paying the correct invoice from a list of what could be hundreds of invoices at a time, you can, from the bills list screen, mark and you can click the pay button for a certain invoice and it will pull up the same pay bill screen, but it'll be pre-filtered. And then you're able to select the invoice and mark it as paid or pay it from that screen. Another accounts payable update, similar to what we talked about on the customer side with Samaya, was if you click on a vendor name, it's going to open the vendor information screen, which was previously the AP ledger for that vendor. And so in order to run the AP ledger, you'll just have to go into accounts payable and reports and pull the AP ledger. But we do want to use this time to also talk about the list beta interface that's available for the vendor list. This does remain in the beta testing phase. So if you're in the vendor list screen, if you use that beta interface, make sure you test it out, try to move the columns, resize the columns, and then also provide Intacct with feedback so that they can take that feedback into consideration and improve it before they roll it out to other list view screens. And I will pass it to Samaya for payroll.
Awesome. Next slide. Sage Intacct Payroll powered by ADP. Excited to announce that the Sage Intacct Payroll and Human Capital powered by ADP is available to all US companies. Couple of benefits for this payroll software: the journal entries will flow through from Payroll to Sage Intacct, which is a really huge time saver. Employee adds and changes automatically sync to Intacct. So if you're making a change in the payroll software about an employee, you don't have to go back to Intacct and make that same exact change. It will just flow through. So that's super nice. Dimensions and time and expense report automatically sync to the Intacct payroll. And again, note that this idea came from you. So I highly, highly encourage you guys to submit those ideas that you guys have in the community and vote on it as much as you guys can. If you are interested to know a little bit more about the Sage Intacct payroll, feel free to reach out to your client manager. Next slide. The construction payroll. Sage Intacct construction payroll gives you a complete view of your project cost with extraordinary visibility into each cost component. If you would like to learn a little bit more about this, you can reach out to your client manager. Next slide. User experience. Next slide. As you have noticed, Sage is continually changing the UI labels for clarity and consistency. These were the changes that were made with this release. Next slide. Details about subscription. There is a detail link which goes to the more information on sage.com to help you decide if this module is a good fit for you. With this release, the detail link is only available for contracts and project, but they have mentioned that they are planning on adding the detail link in other modules with the next couple of release. Next slide. Web services. Watch the Sage Intacct Developer Portal blog to stay up to date with the great new features in the web services. And then I will pass on to Jessica.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we do have the Armanino Spotlight, which is a new little piece of our release webinar here. First, we did want to talk about Blackline Financial Operations Management. And so this platform does enable your finance and accounting team to focus on what matters most. So it is available, and it's definitely something, again, if you're interested, if you reach out to your client manager, we can get you much more information on the Blackline offering. And also, we have the managed services team. So I'm sure you noticed in our introductions, Samaya, myself, and Jeremy are all on the managed services team. So what we do is we really we work with our clients to provide a proactive and strategic approach to their Intacct platform, but it does reach beyond just Intacct. If there's any software that you're using, there's potential for, you know, a managed services partnership that can help make sure that you're, you know, getting the most out of your investment in the software that you're using. So again, if you're interested, it's definitely something that we can work with you on to make sure that you're using Intacct and any other software as effectively as possible. And finally, of course, we do have the Armanino Academy. This is our Armanino-led Intacct classes. So these are really focused on, you know, the user and how you're going to use Intacct on a day-to-day basis. I think that's really kind of what sets them apart from other trainings that are available. They really help make sure that, you know, you're understanding the material and that you're using Intacct in a way that makes sense for, you know, your organization and your day-to-day practices. And with that, I believe we have a little bit of time. We can work through a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. It looks like we did get one question on the locking the general ledger. We can go ahead and dig into Intacct and take a look at that if you want.
Yes, that's a super cool feature.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to help with the internal controls that a lot of people look into. Okay, so I am in forward. I'm going to go to general ledger. And so if you are an admin and if you're interested in setting up the locking, the GL, you would go to configuration. And if you,
There it is.
too far. Under, in the first section here, you'll have enable closed statutory reporting periods to be locked. So notice how this is checked. Since this is checked, whenever we go to general ledger and all, now we have an additional option here for locking the closed period. So if I click into lock the closed period, currently in this instance, no period has been locked yet in Intacct. So I could lock all of the periods. Maybe if my last audit was for December 2022, I want to lock that down for November because we don't have December in this demo. But I could lock it and then it couldn't be opened until I unlock it in this instance.
That's super nice.
Yes. Trying to take a look to see what other questions there might be. Okay, we have a question also on the dashboard template. That is a really good one. I'm going to hop back into Technology Academy just because, so Technology Academy is our service industry demo environment. So if we go back to our applications dropdown and into dashboards, you'll notice it looks like it's a header, but it is actually a link. So if you click on dashboards here, it's going to take you to all of the dashboards that are available to your user. And once you're on the general dashboard screen, if you go to dashboard library here, you'll have all of them here that you can just click install. And I do want to make sure to know or to note that there's not a fee for installing these dashboards from the dashboard library. And you can, how I mentioned, if we download them and customize them, if then you want to get it back to, you know, the untouched version, you're able to do that. So if we, let's just install, I think the cache analysis is a popular one I've been, well, maybe not that one. Maybe it won't let us download. I didn't have this issue yesterday. But you can download it. There we go. You can download it, customize it, and then download a clean version if you want to see what it was originally. And so back when we're in the My Dashboard screen, after we downloaded from the dashboard library, it was this department manager for revenue. So if I click View Components now, this is, and again, we have to remember this is a demo environment. So there may not be the data that we're expecting to see.
Right.
But in your instance, of course, you know, you would have hopefully many transactions posted in here that would populate. Okay, and looks like,
And then I
let's
really
take a look
hope
if we,
you guys are all
go
using
ahead.
the dashboard. Like, that's one of my favorite thing about Intacct, the dashboard and the reporting of Intacct. So like these dashboards are definitely very, very useful and handy.
Yes, definitely. And so I just popped into the entity level in this demo environment to show you this is the controller dashboard that was installed from that dashboard library. And so it's populating. So we have a sad face here, but it looks like our payroll expenses have gone down. So we get a green arrow, which is good. And you can have graphs for varying information, anything that you would like to see. And chances are we can get it in here in some form or fashion. One thing I do want to point out on the dashboards is the interactive filters up here. So what you can do is, maybe if I really need to look at month end for last month, if I put in, you know, last month's date and click apply, this is going to update for us. And so the key here is changing that date, change the date for all of my reports. So instead of going into the report center or the list of financial reports and, you know, running them individually and putting in my date 14 times with a dashboard, I pop in that one date, click apply, and it's going to update everything on here for me.
Awesome.
We use a different date here. We can start looking. There we go. Get some information in here to look at. So here would be a revenue by item graph that's giving us each of the items and a nice little donut chart. And then I think the close through summary is definitely an important one for anyone that is involved in closing periods. We do have a question, are dashboards free? Yes, the dashboards are part of the core. Yep.
Awesome. We have a couple of minutes left. I think we could show the pay bill feature. That's a pretty exciting one.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm back in the top level of Technology Academy, a multi-currency environment. So I'm going to go to my applications dropdown, accounts payable, and then in the bill screen. So normally, remember, you have to go into pay bills. Let's just look at that super quickly. So you would have to go into pay bills and kind of start filtering here, you know, which vendor do I want to pay, and make sure that you're selecting all of the right ones. But with the update, you're able to go directly into your bill screen. And so maybe I know that I want to pay Amazon. If I click pay, I'm able to see it's coming up already filtered to the Amazon vendor, and all of the payment methods are updated. And so I can just click to pay this, and then I can pay now.
Awesome.
And I'm looking to see if we have time for one more question before we close out. Okay, it looks like we did have a question. So I talked a little bit about the difference between, you know, a nonprofit or a service industry, the template that's being used to know what, which options are available to you. And so if you, and this is permissions-based, but if you go to the company tab and then under setup, and again, this company here, on the accounting tab, there's a quick start template, and it would say, it'll say either service industry or nonprofit. So that's the way that you can identify what template your environment was set up on. And then one last thing, and then I think we'll call it good for today, is all of these release notes. If there's anything, you know, that you want to read a little bit more in depth on or anything like that, when you're on your home screen, there is the product updates. So if you go to read the 2022 or 2023 R2 release notes, it'll give you more detailed updates on, you know, anything that we talked about today. And then, of course, you're welcome to reach out if you have any additional questions. And then another thing to note is the release calendar. So these are the next 2 releases for the remainder of the year that will come out. And of course, please come back for our webinar.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Samaya. Thank you, Jessica. I think that wraps up our questions and presentation for today. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. And please remember to complete the survey as you close out of the webinar.